it's the mission. It's knowing that the guy on the ground out there or gal on the ground is waiting for us, keeps us going. And it's tough because we can't save them all, and we haven't saved them all. And my folks have seen some horrendous stuff since they've been here, and it will be with them for the rest of their lives.
In the 10 years that have encompassed the Iraq and Afghanistan military campaigns, tens of thousands of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen have been taken off the battlefield, flown out of harm's way, and into the care of doctors and nurses who have redefined combat trauma medicine. They've been ferried out of the battle theaters on military aircraft that have been reconfigured into flying trauma wards. 35,000 sorties into and out of the combat theater in the last decade. Mission after mission, deployment after deployment, war-weary doctors, nurses, and flight crews pushed to their physical and emotional limits.
You do not have time to cry. You do not have time to feel. You basically put those feelings in a box and you put them over here on the counter.
The AeroMedical crews, many of them reservists or members of the National Guard, fly to Ramstein, Germany from bases in the U.S., and then spend weeks flying downrange to pick up the injured. Mindful of the threat of missile strikes from the ground, on this night, we make a serpentine, lights-out combat approach over the towering Hindu Kush Mountains, steeply diving to the fog-shrouded runway at Bagram, Afghanistan.
100.
It is a stomach-dropping experience.
50. 30.
Colonel Aaron Evangelisti is the commander of the Phoenix crew.
What is amazing to see is the selflessness of so many of these folks. You know, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that we bring on board the airplane. You know, even some of the most critically wounded. You know, you can see how proud they are for what they've done, what they've given to their country. At the same time, you can see, you know, the pain and suffering that they're currently going through.
On each flight, there are stunning portraits of courage and toughness. The Marine who refused a stretcher on the 7-hour flight from Balad, Iraq, back to Germany. The survivor of an IED attack that killed members of his platoon.
On the back of the ear, I got a hole the size of a golf ball in my arm and shrapnel in my leg. Other than that, I'm good.
The Humvee turret gunner, like most of the severely injured, he too the victim of an IED attack on his vehicle.
Like entering into the gates of hell. So you see nothing but blood and glass and flames shooting over you. There's a little piece on the turret that basically saved my life. And at that time, you just realize that I don't know if I'm going to survive this.
And these are kids, and that's what got me on a few of these.
Yeah.
You look at them, they're so young.
They are. But you know what? They're so resilient. You would be amazed at the folks that say, when am I going to get better? I need to get back to my men and women. I need to get back to my troops. The camaraderie here, the dedication is phenomenal. And they want to know, how long is it going to take me to get better? I've got to get back to my men.
For 19 years, Lieutenant Colonel Sherry Hemby has been the first face that severely injured have seen when they're transitioned out of the war zone. It's a role she says she was born to play.
I've always had this wanderlust about me. As a little girl, I used to look at the airplanes and wonder, where were they going? Who was in them? I went to nursing school. After nursing school, I wanted to go active duty. My mother said, "Oh no, honey, you can't do that. They'll take you away and I'll never see you again."
She's taken hundreds of flights downrange, cared for thousands of patients. The pressure, she says, takes a toll.
We do hurt. We do feel. We see these young men and young women and we see what war has done to them, and it's hard. We do kind of silly things. I had a water balloon fight for my folks on Memorial Day. I have hula hoops. It kind of helps us to release that steam.
As Iraq casualties have wound down, the number of Afghanistan injured has soared. We walk through the sprawling base at Bagram with a colonel who oversees the surging tide of severely injured U.S. and Afghan combatants.
We average about 300 traumas in a month, average of about 6 to 10 a day. Since January, we have seen close to 5,000 ER patients roll through the trauma bay that you see to the right of me here.
We're going to start out at Bagram here, and we're going to head down this valley.
An Army dust-off team is summoned to a forward operating base to pick up injured. The two Medevac Blackhawks will fly 100 miles over a harsh Taliban-controlled landscape. The door gunner always looking for flashes from below. If they take fire, the crews know they have backup.
We don't do this mission alone. We have attack helicopters and scout helicopters that will go in and clear the LZ before we get in there. We have had to fight our way into those patients to try and secure at least an area at a period short enough to where we can get in, get the patient, and get out. That always doesn't work out, thus why 5 helicopters have taken rounds.
It's especially hard when the war touches you personally, as it did when word of an Iraq casualty hit home.
He had skull fractures, he had fractured ribs, he had both of his legs were broken, both of his arms. He'd had tourniquets on his arms because when it rolled over, it crushed both his arms. He was bleeding out, he was hemorrhaging.
The injured soldier was the godson of her fiance, David Pond, and they both knew it didn't look good.
Being the nurse that I am, I thought of all the potential complications, and I thought, I don't know he's going to make it. And I thought, how am I going to tell Dave, honey, I don't think he's going to make it.
He survived, was airlifted to Germany. After a long recovery, he now counsels fellow soldiers. The patients are fragile. It is not uncommon to have 3 double amputees on a flight out of Bagram up to Germany. A quadruple amputee was recently flown out. Their sacrifice is saluted by the ground crews. In the din of jet engines and howling wind, they are applauded aboard.
It is crisply and beautifully choreographed. The idea here is to get this aircraft off the ground as quickly and in as stealthy a way as possible to get these patients away from hostile airspace. It's 2 o'clock in the morning here in Afghanistan. We'll be wheels up in a matter of an hour.
During the Vietnam conflict, it took an average of 45 days for an injured soldier to be transported from the theater of operations back to the continental United States. A soldier wounded today in Afghanistan or Iraq could arrive at a Level 4 trauma center in Landstuhl, Germany in as few as 12 hours. Back on the flight line at C-17, the state-of-the-art troop transport is prepped for the flight back to Germany. The flight's delayed for a short time. There are concerns one of the severely injured patients has taken a bad turn, but he's stabilized, and the CCAT team, a storied 3-person critical care unit, checks his vitals. A flight nurse who has flown AeroMedical for nearly a quarter of a century will never take her eyes off that severely injured medic who's now on life support. She has a simple formula for critical care.
Treat them the way their mom would want them to be treated.
For nearly 70 years, through generations of aircraft, this has been the way home for wounded American heroes. It is the aircraft you never want to be on, but if you're hurt, it's the only place you want to be.
So why do you do this?
This is my part. This is my part. I was raised to be very patriotic, so I joined the military, and this is what I do to contribute.
I am serving my country and taking care of these young men and women. They're taking bullets for me. They're getting blown up for me, for my freedoms. They're out on the front line. The least I can do is train the folks underneath me, and we're going to take care of those men and women and make sure they're okay.
Sometimes it hurts. It hurts a lot to not be able to save those soldiers. But every mission is a new mission, and that's the way we focus on it. Is every day is a new day, and we do what we can to save. We save those who we can, and we try like hell for those we couldn't.